Hi, I'm Ray Braselton, your host for the music show.
And I'm Nick Rita, co-host.
Glad to have you with us today. We have a very interesting show on a very well-known luthier in the Rochester area by the name of Bernie Lehmann. He was on our show with the Rochester Guitar Club a little while ago. And in seeing him play and perform, we also had him do a little segment, I think, on a little luthier work. And just thought we should expound on that and bring this all to you in a...
He's way too talented to just put him as a segment.
Right. So we decided,
dedicate the whole program.
That's what we decided to do. So we're going to be taking you to his shop. You'll be able to see his tools, how he works with them on the guitars, and then we'll be bringing him back here to the studio for
play a few tunes.
Tunes, and also another segment on molding of guitars with certain molds. And so I think you'll really enjoy it. We want you to stick in and watch this show, everybody. See you in a little bit now. Well, we're back to you again with the very infamous, famous Bernie Lehmann from Rochester, New York. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Everybody probably knows Bernie. And you're playing, what kind of guitar are you playing?
Naturally a Lehmann guitar. I make a variety of different kinds. This is my fancy flat top version.
Yeah, show us the back. Yeah. I don't know if anybody can catch that, but tell them.
This is made out of ebony in the back and the sides, and it has this sort of ribbed design to it that affects the sound and makes it, well, let me just say better.
Yeah. Well, it gives it...
Without getting too many,
without
too many details.
Right, but it's a different sound.
Yeah,
altogether.
Yeah. Right.
Somebody said a Baroque guitar?
But I fixed it.
Yep. Well, it broke when they fixed it. Gotcha. But to get back to reality here, in fact, that does have a different sound to it than I think a lot of guitars, and it's because of is it a Spanish influence?
Well, it's actually comes from historical guitars from the 17th century that were made like this.
Was it Spain?
Yeah, in Spain and in mostly European designs from lutes.
Yeah, lutes. Right. Well, I just thought it was interesting because you're going to be playing a song for us in this. And again, Bernie has been in the Rochester area for a long time, and I have known you since I was a little kid. I've heard about you. And so Bernie's going to do a couple of songs for us. I didn't realize you could play guitar, too. You just made them, I thought. Yeah. Well, Bernie, I'll quit teaching you now, and we'll get back. You're going to be doing what song for us, Bernie?
This is a song called Loftus Jones, written by Turlo O'Carolan, who was a Baroque Irish musician.
Good. Thank you.
Hi, come on in. Take a look at my shop. All right, welcome to the shop area of my shop. This is where all the machinery is and where all the sawdust is made. And this is where I like to spend most of my time actually is chipping wood. Now I wanted to show you around some of the machinery that I use to make guitars. It really is not doesn't have to be a big fancy operation with big heavy machinery. If any of you have ever been to one of the factories like Martin or something, you'll see a amazing number and variety of big machines that make no dust whatsoever. Well, this is just kind of the opposite. I have a few machines that make a lot of dust. One of my most useful ones is the bandsaw here. I use this for scroll work and cutting out curvy lined things. I also use it with an extension in it for cutting the sides and the backs from boards. When the extension is in this and I put a longer blade in it, I'm able to resaw a long, very thick board of wood. And so I sometimes cut my own back and side sets from lumber. Now, after I've bandsawed this wood, this is a piece of mahogany. It has the bandsaw cuts in it, and I've cut it to roughly 1/8 of an inch. Now, the thing that I would do after that would be to go over to my jointer machine over here and make the edges square so that I can join the two pieces together, the two pieces of the back. Now, this is an ancient machine from the teens that I've had for years, a big cast iron base, and it's a very, very heavy machine, which makes it function much better because it doesn't vibrate. And it has a spinning blade, so it's like a planer. And what I do is take the edge, and I'll plane the edge over this jointer blade until it matches the other half, and I can put them together, and they make a perfect joint. So after the two halves are joined and square, then I take it back to the machine over here, which is something I've put together from an old shopsmith that my dad bought in maybe 1959 or something, and he used it for years in the basement of our house, and then he gave it to me, and I've used it for a good 30 years, and it's just an amazing machine. The bearings are still tight, and it still functions just beautifully. It's a very, very beautifully designed tool. Now, what I've done with this is to make a sanding drum. So I turned a round wooden drum, and I glued sandpaper to it. And the table here is adjustable. It goes up and down with the crank underneath here. And so I can bring the table closer and closer to the sanding drum. And in this way, I can take a very thin piece of wood that if I were to try and run it through a planer or something, it might just eat it right up because it's so thin, and often the grain of the wood is very squirrely, and they tend to chip out on planers. But on the thickness sander, it works very well. So with the drum sanding, I can just push the board between the table and the drum, take off a little bit, and then raise the table a little bit more and take off a little bit more, and so very carefully bring it down. Part of the process of building is to get the thickness and the strength just perfect for this particular piece of wood. So this is an important moment in the construction of the instrument, to get the strength of the wood just right. So once I get close to the right dimension, then I start tapping it and flexing and listening to the tap tone of the wood, and squeezing it, flexing it to get the right flexibility. So I generally build to a strength rather than to a dimension. Now the other
important tool in the shop is my table saw here, which is standard, pretty much 10-inch table saw used for milling pieces up, making molds, particularly good for that. And I have a lot of little hand tools that are important too. Routers. Over here are some under the table. I've got a good-sized plunge router. I have an angle grinder, which is very useful. I have a belt sander. I have a small palm sander as well. And I also use hand planes for a lot of things. It's sort of an old-fashioned tool that never goes out of fashion. Now back behind me here is my wood storage. Once I get the lumber in, or if I've ordered pre-cut pieces, then they need to be air dried for a while to acclimate to the climate in Rochester, and particularly in the shop here. So it's always a good idea to let them air dry in this environment for a couple of months or more. But I buy lumber when I run across it, and when it looks like the right quality, and then I stack it and let it cure and age in the shop here until there's a time that I need it. These here are spruce tops, and they have little sticks in between each piece to allow the air to circulate through so that they dry evenly. I wanted to show you a little bit about the finish of an instrument. After the lacquer has been sprayed on and it's been sanded down and leveled and made perfectly smooth, then I put on the final gloss coats, and the finish comes out looking pretty much like you would expect, nice and shiny and pretty smooth. But if you look very carefully at it, it has some little wrinkles and it looks like a little orange peel that comes from the air blowing the finish onto the guitar. So what I have to do next to make it a perfectly smooth finish is to sand the finish with sandpaper, very fine grit. I usually use 1500 grit, which is really super fine, and just use water as a lubricant to sand the finish. And once you've sanded over the whole thing many times until it's just perfectly smooth, then I'll use some finer compounds, some polishing compounds, to try and get rid of all the real fine sanding scratches and bring it up to a high gloss luster with a buffing wheel. So it's quite a laborious process, even after the guitar is essentially all done, all the work is done. In order to make the finish look just right, it needs to be wet sanded. So I'll just show you a little bit here with some water and this cork backing block so that it stays nice and level. Get the light just right so it's reflecting off of the finish, so you can see how much you're sanding. The danger is that you sand through the finish somewhere and then have to reapply some more lacquer to it. But I like to keep the finish as thin as possible so it stays very light. It doesn't load down the spruce top with weight that will inhibit the vibrations, because it's all about getting the spruce soundboard to vibrate and to move. So the finish is a very important factor in this process here. So this I can spend pretty much all day from this point. I mean, a good 8 or 10 hour day, sanding out the finish, polishing it up, and working on every little detail. And of course, once I have it down here, then you find any minor little fault that then needs to be touched up with a little brush, and wait another day for that to cure. And it's quite a labor-intensive process just to get a proper and good-looking guitar finish. Well, this is the corner of my shop that has my handmade instruments in it. In the front area, I have some used instruments that I sell, or recondition and resell, and And this corner here is features some of the things that I've made. My ebony guitar, gypsy guitar. Here's one of my archtop guitars. And this is my newest instrument right here that will be delivered to its new owner in about a week or so. This is a Macaferry style guitar like Django Reinhardt played. This one is got lots of fancy stuff on it. It has an Adirondack spruce top, ebony board, big block inlays. The back and sides are Brazilian rosewood, real dark shade of Brazilian rosewood. It's a beautiful tone wood. And this guitar is trimmed rather like a classical guitar with rosewood bindings and black white purflings all around it. So it's sort of a traditional guitar in a lot of ways. But the top has lots more details with abalone sound hole rings and a custom-made inlay for the top of the instrument here, where I put my name vertically. And the owner lives in Nova Scotia, so he goes out whale watching a lot, and so I put inlaid a ivory whale up in the head and kind of breaching through the surf. And it's one of the fun parts of my work is doing custom inlays. And I'll just put the mic down here and play a little couple chords here. These guitars have a fairly strong mid-range sound. They're halfway in between a arch top and a flat top. Nice big sound, real loud, built for power and playing with other instruments. They tend to cut right through really nicely. Music can be fun and it can be serious and it can be a real pleasure all the time. So thanks for coming to the shop.
Hello and welcome to Uncle Nick's Corner, this segment of the program, our educational segment. Today I'm going to talk about a set of chords that are very useful in jazz. They're diminished seventh chords. Here's what it sounds like. Now, we can look at that diminished seventh chord as a different type of chord. We can use it in a setting where that chord is actually the number 5 in a chord. Now, when I say the number 5 in a chord, what I mean is it's built on the dominant tone of the scale. In a plain sense, if we have a G7, it resolves to a C7 or C major 7. G5 1. Now these diminished chords we can also think of as a 7th chord with a flatted 9th. Now we're not going to go too deep into the theory of this, but what it means is if I play this chord here, besides hearing it as a diminished 7, whose root could be this note, this note, this note, or this note, I'm going to think of it as a 7th chord with this being the root, the E. So if I play E7, I'm going to resolve to a major 7. So here's the E7, here's the A major 7. But being that I'm using this, and it gives me a 7 with a flat 9, I could also think of it in my head and kind of get really weird about it, because if I bring it up to here, I have the same chord inverted. So I can make a neat little thing. So instead of going to this A major 7, I took it. I can take it up. So I can bring it as a number 5 chord into that. Now the neat thing about this is that if I look at this and bring it as an E7, I can also bring this note down a half step, and it becomes a B flat 7. The B flat 7 is a number 5 in the key of E flat. Listen to that. So now I could do the same thing, but now I'm thinking of it as an E flat 7. And I want to resolve to an E flat. E flat 7. Listen to that again. Same, but instead of going to A, I'm going to E flat. Same thing again. If I look at it and I bring this down, it's going to be a C sharp 7, which resolves to an F sharp 7. Now I know some of this is over your head as far as theoretical, but listen, I'm going to go from a C7, same chord though, so it's going, there we are. So now I'm resolving in the key of F sharp. Same, or, one was in the key of A, one was in the key of E flat, the other was in the key of F sharp. One other thing, yeah, you're not getting away that easy. If I bring this note down a half step, it's a G7. Where does G7 resolve? G7 is a number 5 in the key of C, like we said before. So we're going from a G7, but here's a G7 with a flat 9, but it's our all-purpose diminished chord. So watch this. And it resolves to that chord. Very handy chord. Now, we can go deeper into this and add the minor 7, which is a number 2, and have something like a D minor 7, G7, C7. So if you have any questions, I know that's this was a little bit on the nebulous side, but I think if you attune your ear to it, you can grab some of these. If you have any questions on it, or you want some further explanation to it, feel free to get in touch with us. So until next time, keep picking.
Well, we're glad to have you with us on the music show and our instrument showcase today. And today we have Bernie Lehmann. Done a good job today, Bernie.
Thank you.
So glad. So what do we have here today? What's I guess I should first say a little bit more about Bernie, shouldn't I, Nick?
Good idea.
Let's talk about Bernie, okay?
Okay.
Bernie,
around, Bernie?
Shall I look the other way?
right. Bernie's been with us for a few years, right? And how many years have you been working with the Luthier business?
Well, I started in 1972 building guitars and moved to Rochester in 1977. And
Where were you from originally?
I was from Rochester. I went to school in Syracuse and studied design there, and then worked with an instrument builder out in Boston.
But you've got some interesting material here, and I guess Bernie's going to just tell us a little bit about how it's done, and pretty much the whole guitar, the neck, the body.
Well, I build several different kinds of guitars, as you probably know who watch the show often. People play electric guitars and solid body guitars, but I don't generally make that sort of instrument. I make acoustic instruments. My main instrument that I make is a flat top steel string guitar. And I've made those right from the start, really, because that's what I play myself for the most part. But over the years, I've learned how to make classical guitars and jazz guitars, archtop jazz guitars, and I make gypsy-style guitars like Django Reinhardt used to play. They've become quite popular in the last few years.
You actually have a few of the guitars that you brought. I don't know if this would be an appropriate time to maybe show a few of them, and then we'll get into the building part of it, maybe. But
Sure. Well, over here is a jazz guitar. It's a big, full-size acoustic jazz archtop guitar. It's designed to have great projection and really cut through a bank of horns and be.
It was originally called an orchestra guitar for that reason, because it cuts through.
and probably popular during the 1930s.
Yeah, it's 30s, and the swing era and all that was.
And this is acoustic with a pickup,
That's right.
as opposed to a similar one that may be built as an electric. This is built as an acoustic, which sounds nice as an acoustic, but also has the pickups in it.
Yes, and one of the differences is that the wood is all carved. If you look at it from the side view, you can see that it has an arch to it, like a violin, and this is all. The back is also carved out of a thick piece of wood.
What kind of wood is that?
This is maple on the back and sides, and spruce on the top.
And that's typical of jazz archtop guitars.
That's right. It's really closer to the violin cello family.
Then the technology is closer to that than it is to the guitar family.
It is. It's made with bass bars to support it.
Right.
And these are not just guitars we're showing, but these are the guitars you built.
That's correct. Right. This is. I make a couple different models, 3 different sizes of.
It almost seems thinner than a lot that I've seen. No?
No,
Maybe not.
it's about.
Typical?
They vary a little bit. No,
I've seen thicker, but
Yeah. That all affects the resonance
Right.
and the carrying power of it.
Is this the 17-inch or is this 18?
This is a 17.
17.
Right.
And that's typical too, that there's a 16, a 17, and then the biggest one is the 18.
Right.
now when you're talking that, inches, what are we talking?
The width,
The width of the bottom bout.
lower bout. Right.
I love that.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So this is
Where's my case?
this is my rather deluxe flat top that has a back made out of ebony. It's kind of a style piece, and it's a woodworking piece as well as a fine functional musical instrument,
Sure.
I think. But I've worked a lot on the design and the decoration of this. It's carved around the edges, and has lots of very fine details in it that make it a pleasure to hold, as well as sound good.
Now, you have blue strings on it. Is that a coating? I understand that's a coating on those strings, right?
Yeah. These are they make the strings longer,
Yeah.
and they look just fantastic. I
Did you
think.
say that's got kind of a treble sound to it?
This one has a very deep, full, chesty sound to it. Because of the depth of the body and this back, which arches like this, it has a very full, deep sound.
Gotcha.
Really warm and full.
If you want to turn around the back,
Yes.
the wood is kind of indented. And is this each a piece of wood going here? Every one is a strip of wood that you have?
That's correct. Yeah, and each one is
they're-
steam bent into this shape.
And that creates a different sound? Or-
Yeah, it increases the air cavity inside the instrument mainly. In terms of what exactly the form does, I'm really not sure.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But,
And does this have
Interesting.
a adjustable truss rod?
Yes, it does. Yes, I make them the little 1/8-inch Allen wrench up at the top,
cute,
so it has a very petite
Uh-huh.
sort of truss rod cover.
Bernie, you build these guitars and you have your own store and shop. Where is that located in case anybody wants to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my shop is called Lehmann Instruments, Lehmann Stringed Instruments, and it's on Elton Street, which is downtown Rochester, near Gleason Works off University Avenue.
Great. And we'll have to make sure we get that on the screen there with your. Do you have a contact number and everything too?
Oh, sure. I have my website is lehmannstrings.com, and my phone number is 902-TONE.
Yeah. I'm gonna make sure we got that before we went on. Let's show us a couple more guitars. I'll kind of move out of the way.
All right, now this is a more or less standard orchestra model flat top. It's what they call a triple O size. It's a medium-sized body, not a real big dreadnought. It's a little bit thinner than a dreadnought. And this one is made out of a Swiss pear wood, steamed Swiss pear. This also has a spruce top and is pointed with tortoiseshell bindings and tortoiseshell pickguard around here.
I wonder if you can get a close-up of that top. That is a beautiful
Isn't
piece
that
of
lovely?
spruce.
Yeah.
Can you pull that in there? Pretty
It's
close.
when you get a piece of wood which is perfectly quarter sawn, which means the grain is vertical, it gets this cross silking through it. As you can see, the
Like a
grain is
flame
running
almost.
vertical. It
Yeah.
almost looks flamey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just a superior piece
Beautiful.
of spruce.
Yeah.
Lovely piece of spruce.
Now-
And the pear wood itself lends a particular tone, just like
Right.
the ebony lends
Sure,
a tone.
right. Now, when you have a piece, how difficult it is to have other pieces of spruce similar to this? So, in other words, the spruce next to it, is it as nice, or do you just get a few pieces of spruce out of it?
Well, I have built guitars from consecutive pieces of wood, and they all sound different.
It's
So
amazing, isn't it?
it is amazing.
Yeah, right.
I build them the same, and they come out different.
Uh-huh.
Because each piece of wood is unique, and it has its own little voice. And really, that's my part in this, is finding the voice in the wood.
Now, I've heard that wood tends to sound better as time goes on as far as guitars. Is that a myth, or is that true that guitars sound better sometimes the older they get, or the wood matures or something along that line? I'd heard that. I don't know if that's true.
I believe that it's true.
You do?
Yes. It's the wood itself has a pore structure, and that sort of the minerals crystallize inside it, gets a little bit denser, and it's all about being light and strong. And so as it ages, it maintains the cell structure, so it stays just as strong, but it gets lighter. So the voice comes out more.
So, great. Did we cover
the
all?
wood you use mostly are all air dried.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
nothing
mostly
kiln
so.
dried.
Yes. Now, the last one I have here is a classical guitar, which is also on my fancy lute back sort of model. This was in Brazilian rosewood.
That is beautiful too.
And Brazilian is a very rare species nowadays, and it's very hard to find nice, perfectly quartered, grained pieces. So I found that I can get a really nice, match of wood and a very interesting look by using the little strip
That's
technique
beautiful.
here.
It's beautiful. See some little work in here. How's that done? You didn't hand carve that.
That's carved. Yeah, that's carved with a little chisel right on the neck here, and
You see it?
there we go. There you get it in
There
the
you
light.
go.
Sure.
Yeah. So right in here.
It's just one of these little detail things that I love to do. This is what really gets me excited about building an instrument, is this little detail things that you may not notice on the first or second glance, but
Well, it's
living with it, you say, wow, look at that.
I see there's a little hole. Is that a hole? Yes, a little hole
Yeah.
here too. And does that accommodate sound somewhere or another?
Yeah, it acts like a monitor for the player.
Oh, yeah,
Of course,
that's
as he's sitting here playing it like
Yeah,
this,
you can hear it, yeah.
it broadcasts the sound up and makes it easier for the player to hear it.
Interesting.
That's amazing.
Thank you for showing us
Okay.
your instruments. And now, just to get some idea on how you even attempt to do something like this, I see molds here.
Right.
Are these aren't molds as such, are they? Or is this? Yes, this
Well,
is a
this
mold.
is.
Yeah.
I have two different kinds of mold. This is a bending mold for bending the sides on, and then there's also an interior mold for assembly purposes to
Right.
keep it in good symmetry. But the wood is quite thin. I have to thin it down to about 3/32 or 90 thousandths, and sometimes doing a cutaway or something, I would make it even thinner than that. And until the wood has just the right amount of bend and flex to it.
How do you thin it? How do you do that?
I thin it with a thickness sander rather than a planer. So the sander just goes quite slowly, but it takes off a few thousandths at a time, and I can carefully control the thickness on it. And then once I have a thin, flat piece of wood for the side, I bend it with steam. And that is accomplished by wrapping the side in a piece of aluminum foil and spraying it with water until the wood's nice and juicy, and let it set and soak in just a little bit.
And then you steam it. And
And then I steam it, and I have these electric blankets. They're rubberized material that I lay on the side and plug it in, and within a couple of minutes, it starts to steam the wood, and you can you can see the steam rising off it and listen to it and bubbling, and then I can press it into the mold with little blocks and things. So I press down the inner bout and then bend around the lower bout and clamp that down, and heat it and cook it just enough till it starts to dry out, and then let it unplug it and let it dry and cure on the mold overnight, and that permanently holds the shape.
now, this would be an example of a completed,
Yeah, this is
or this
yeah.
one over here. Is that?
Well, they're both. This is just to
Oh,
keep it.
okay.
There's a little spacer there to keep it from collapsing. But this is a regular flat top in rosewood, and
Is this Brazilian or is this
this
East
is Indian. This is East
Yeah.
Indian rosewood, and the neck block has been glued to it up here, and there's a tail block down at the bottom, and those are to help join the sides and give a little support.
Is this the finished slot?
Yes, this is a slot. Actually, this is a travel guitar, so it has a very unique joint that slides
I see.
in there with an aluminum channel,
Okay. So normally, though, you'd have a dovetail.
a dovetail joint.
Right.
Right. And then this thin strip around here is what they call kerfed lining, and it's a piece of cedar or mahogany that's cut almost all the way through, so that it bends very easy and it's very flexible. And when you glue it to the edge, you increase the gluing surface.
Gotcha.
So that they can. And this one is for a jazz-style guitar here, with a cutaway in it, and it also has the neck and the tail blocks, and it's about ready to cut the neck joint.
How come this side doesn't? This one has it on both sides. This one doesn't.
They haven't got that far.
Oh, sorry.
That's to show you what it looks like before the curve.
Okay.
Well, there's a process, and with this, with flat tops, I always glue the top on first.
Gotcha.
And then fit the back to it.
Right.
And the arch top guitar, it's an even thickness, so I can glue both of them at once.
It's so sharp.
Now this is the smaller 16-inch, and it's a little bit thinner too.
Yeah, I see.
Where do you want to go next?
Now this wood you've got over here, is there something that significant to talk about with this before we get to the neck?
Sure. Well, this is how I buy the wood. I usually buy it from musical instrument wood suppliers who cut the wood specifically for musical instruments. It's very hard to find good musical instrument wood at the lumber yard.
Yeah.
That being
would
said,
imagine.
I bought this pear wood at Pittsford Lumber,
Oh,
and
Amazing. Yeah.
but you have to know what to look for. And
Yeah.
so this is all a very special cut. It's knot free. It's perfect straight quarter sawn, and it has a this is cedar, but it has a musical tone to it. And it's not just lumber, and it's not just pretty lumber. It has to.
oh yeah.
You hear the ring?
Yes, I do.
As I'm holding it here, I can feel the vibration as it's the sustain. And this is part of the evaluation process of what's a good piece of tone wood is how long do you get the sustain.
And what's the kind of wood? What kind of wood is it?
This is red cedar.
Wow.
And I will match a piece of wood with a specific set of sides or in trying to actually design the sound of an instrument for someone.
Yeah.
What do you want next?
Oh, we can go do some of these backwoods here.
Okay.
This is a piece of Brazilian rosewood. It's very dark. It's a very dense, very heavy wood. It's got.
At one time, weren't they not importing Brazilian rosewood as raw materials?
It's still that way. Yeah, since 1969, it's been
Right.
was embargoed. The bad furniture makers were bringing all this wood in and spoiling it for all the rest of us.
I guess I'll blame them.
There,
So this piece of rosewood,
this predates that, probably. Although there is some legal and some ambiguous, let's say, rosewood. Nowadays, in order to carry it across the border, you need certification and papers for it. But this has a very nice ring to it when it's. Here's a piece of Indian rosewood, quite straight grained, also a lot higher pitch to it.
not as figured.
Right, not as figured. And this is a koa wood, which is one of my favorite woods.
And it's a hardwood for the back.
Right, for the back and the sides. It comes from Hawaii. And
Does that have a ring to it?
yeah, this has a nice.
Sure.
You can hear. And this is mahogany. A lot of guitars are made with this, and it has a very nice, clear, ringing sound to it. So it's a very nice. You can hear
Would that be a more mellow sounding guitar?
Well, it's a very mid-range sounding guitar,
Mid-range?
real strong in the mid-range. Maple is one extreme that's very bright.
Yeah.
Lots of highs come out really
What would
nicely.
the low sounding
The
one?
rosewoods.
The rosewood.
They tend to be deeper. And then I also use spruce of different kinds: Adirondack spruce, Sitka spruce.
And the spruce is for the tops.
This would be for the soundboard because it's a softwood.
Right.
And the guitar functions kind of like a speaker system where you've got a very flexible piece to amplify the sound, and the box that encloses it.
The other thing, people have asked me, well, there's a big hole in the guitar, or the F holes. Does the sound come out of those holes, or does that just create some kind of a vacuum or some kind of a
Well,
air cavity to enable it to sound good? I mean, what does people very often think that the sound comes right out of the hole? Does it come right out of the hole, or is it all across the whole board that you're hearing?
no, it does. It radiates from the surface as well. The sound inside, and I mean, I know that the size of the hole makes a difference in what kind of frequencies are able to escape.
Right.
You know, so
The hole, so
thing
it
is
does
shaped.
come out of the hole.
It does,
somehow.
yeah, right.
What's this all about?
Now this is for an arch-top guitar, and you can see that it's a wedge of wood that's cut from a tree. It's a big round tree, and it's split all around the tree.
Like a
Now,
pie.
yeah, like a pie. And what you get is a perfectly quarter sawn piece that's thick in the middle and thin at the edges,
Right.
which is perfect for making arch-top guitars, which are carved.
And that's what you start out with, an arch.
This is what you start,
Yeah,
right.
right.
So then there's a lot of waste when you carve
Now,
away
you
a
do
lot of
most
wood.
of that by hand, or is there a certain amount of machine work that you would do before you finish it?
I have a tracing carver, a
Okay.
pantograph carver that
right.
has a router and so in two arms, so that I make a template on one side, and it kind of follows and
that gives you
carves
the
on the other
rough,
side.
and then you finish it by
Right,
hand, right?
yeah.
A lot of I've read a lot of luthiers are going to that because of the strain that all the carving does on your hands and carpal tunnel.
It
and
can
stuff.
be really fun and very peaceful to sit there with a gouge and chipping wood,
Mm-hmm.
and compared to a router that's screaming and you have to cover your ears. It's horrible. But you just can't afford to do that these days.
What would you like next, Bernie? Then
Yeah, this is a rough neck blank that's glued up in blocks. The long neck here is routed for the truss rod, which will help to reinforce and keep the neck straight. And I've glued on.
Seems like it's awful wide, though. I mean,
You might
what's-
get some slivers too. Yeah.
So, how does this work?
Well, this is sort of a middle stage where I've fit it for this body here, so that this tongue will go right down into the neck block here and help keep it aligned. And there's also a joint which will make it attach on there.
You're saying this one you're making it for a detachable neck for
Is
a
it
travel guitar.
right? So you can
Yeah.
pop it out and put it in the suitcase.
Right. That's what
Yeah.
my wife does with me when we travel.
It's a lot cheaper that way. It's
Exactly.
well, cold in baggage sometimes, but I don't mind it either. Then this has a plate on the top of rosewood and a little underlay that's more or less to reinforce the top.
Is this? It just seems. I wasn't kidding when it seems so
Oh,
thick
yeah.
like that. I mean, I didn't.
Right,
My
no.
hand won't get around it. I don't
Yeah,
get
no,
it.
this is, like I say, an early stage.
Okay. So what
and
do you
there's-
do to?
So once it's done like this, I fit the truss rod in here, and then
Okay.
Did you bring a truss rod?
I did not. With the fingerboard there.
Yeah.
Here's one which is done, and I've trimmed it more or less to the width, and so then I can glue this on and make sure that the alignment is just right, and the body.
Is that after you get the truss rod in there, or do you?
Right, put
Okay.
the truss rod in first.
A little steel rod goes through.
Right.
And that rod is sometimes a little curved or something to shape
Right. There's many different ways to do it, but nowadays they use two rods that have a right and a left-hand thread, so that as you tighten it one way, it bows the neck up. When you turn it the other way, it bows it down. So you have complete control, which is quite nice.
and this goes over it.
So then this will get glued over the whole thing, and then I can trim it all up.
Oh,
Because I like to make sure
yeah.
that I know where I'm going to saw it.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's hard going back, fitting those
Oh, boy.
pieces back in after you saw them
Can you
off.
hold it so they can see the? Yeah, just like. Can you get a shot of that? Yeah.
Yeah, now the slots have been cut into the fingerboard with a saw.
And you do
And
that
it's been-
entirely by hand? Or do you have it-
yes.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we can do a whole program on laying out the fingerboard.
Oh, yeah, that's a complicated little bit
Right.
there. Now, this is a fingerboard blank, which this is the way I get it, and they're quite thick and heavy, but
And what's
very
this made
nice.
out of? What kind of wood?
This is ebony.
Ebony.
That's how heavy it is,
Oh,
but
yeah.
makes a good, a very wear-resistant.
Do they still make? This is what they used to use piano keys, the black keys with ebony. Do they still do that with piano keys?
They do, yeah.
They do.
The better ones, I think, are.
And ebony is the premium wood.
It is.
Sometimes you see rosewood.
Right, right,
And some electrics you even see maple.
right.
But this is the wood.
Generally, it does affect the sound, too.
Right.
The whole instrument is shaking and vibrating.
Right.
And the more dense you have it on the neck, the
Right.
more vibration gets absorbed on the
Transfers,
body,
right, yeah.
which is where you want it to get
Certainly,
absorbed.
Right.
So
Extremely
it's a good thing.
interesting to know how much the wood affects anywhere on the guitar that it's built, how much it affects the whole sound of the whole instrument. And I would have never really thought that, for instance, the headstock or the neck would make that much difference with the sound, but it does.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work you do is really craftsmanship. I mean, a lot of it is not done with a lot of machinery work. A lot of it's done by hand. So
That's
it's,
right.
you know, one of the crafts, probably few crafts today still done a lot by hand. I know they do mass produce guitars.
Oh, sure.
Too.
A lot of luthiers have gone to CNC machines, computer carving machines for certain parts, for making bridges and things like that, very repetitive pieces. It's a great way to make parts very efficiently.
Well, I guess we better just tell you, Bernie, how much we appreciate you being in the Rochester area for all these years, and I've known who you are for 30 years, and it's been a real honor to be able to meet the Bernie Lehmann. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having
joining
me,
us,
Ray.
and,
It's a pleasure.
Well, that was very nice, Bernie. Really
Thank you.
appreciate that. By the way, I noticed now you have another guitar.
Yeah, this is a brand new guitar I just made, and it's made out of pear wood in the sides and back. And the next song I'd like to do is Bye Blackbird, which I think sounds good with this guitar in the alternating thumb kind of style, this 1920s thumpy thing. And this has a nice big warm bass to it, so I like it.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.